consultation.com podcast. We are your hosts, Jennifer and April. Today we will be discussing how keeping margin in our days is our secret weapon. SmartSocial.com helps parents keep their kids safe on social media so they can someday shine online. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast to get our weekly resources. And let's just dive into today's topic. So maybe some people out there are thinking, what the heck does margin even mean? If that's supposed to be the downtime of my day, then I'm pretty sure I don't even know how to find that. April, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that statement? I mean, margin's kind of
Oh
a
my
tricky
gosh,
thing.
yes. It is. I agree. And it is a tricky thing just to leave margin in our day, which helps us just be flexible enough to choose to be able to spend time together instead of, these people are too busy and it's leaving our kids or whoever to fend for themselves and then they reach for screens or whatever. And so I've also noticed that when I don't leave enough margin, that I get really short with my kids and I get really stressed out. So, yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, don't you feel like it brings all the negative energy out when you don't have the margin? I'd love to know, maybe we should start talking about like, what are all the opposites of
Yeah,
leaving margin in our family?
right. Yeah. Give us some examples so that our listeners understand exactly what we're talking about, where we're going with this.
Yeah, I think what you just said, like if we don't leave enough margin in our day, then it is so margin would be like the extra time, right? The little buffers that you leave so you're not running crazy. I'm not sure if anyone out there can understand what we're talking about. Just kidding. But all those little like, okay, hurry up, grab your shoes because we're late for this, and you forgot your gym bag. What the heck? I don't know why you can't find it every time, and then you're running out because something pushed you out to get you know out the door 10 minutes later than you wanted to or whatever. But it's because we cut everything so close in our days that we get crazy in that area. Or it might be as simple
Mhm.
as, do you have enough margin in your day to step away from what is consuming you at the time, whether it's work or a household chore or a phone call or whatever it might be, to step away and have a really good chat with your child or go push them on the swing set or just
Yeah.
be able to notice them or your spouse. It's not just our children. Or are we leaving enough margin in our day to give us attention? Because self-care, as far as working out, taking a walk, just sitting down, journaling, a devotional, whatever your thing is, right? I mean, I think when we say we don't have enough time for that, it really comes back to, well, do you, or are you just cramming everything so tight that there's just not margin? So I think we can all
Mhm.
see what the bad fruits of not leaving that could be.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I was talking about this leaving margins in our day, this whole idea with my husband, and he had a really good example of margins. When you think about margins like on a spreadsheet or something, it's that extra space where you have room to take notes or to edit things. And I thought, well, that's a really good way to look at it because it can make you think it leaving margins in our days, we have to, in order to do that, we have to be really intentional. We have to, I think, learn to say no sometimes, which as women and as mamas, I think can be so hard for us, right? To be able to say no to overscheduling ourselves. We've got to put our priorities in check. So we leave those margins. So we leave space for things that could go wrong, or just so we're not racing from one thing to a next. And then oh, wait, I forgot to feed the kids lunch today. I've definitely had days like that. Have you had days like that?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
yes, I want to come back to the thing you said about when you prepare a document or something and you
Yeah.
leave margins to fix the edits. But you just asked me, have I had that? Yes, within the last hour, because I had
Yeah.
crammed my days so tight today. I dropped my children off at a friend's house right before we got on this call, and I was doing a couple work things so that I could get them over there and
Mhm.
have the amount of time to get back on this call when I got
Yeah.
home. But they had built this cute little house for our hamster, and they were saying, "Mom, can we show you?" Our hamster's name is DJ Greenbean, which is a fabulous hamster name. I realize
It
that.
is.
Um,
Mhm.
if any DJ or
Yeah.
if any hamster has a name, he better have two names, right? DJ Greenbean
Yes.
has this fabulous Lego house right now, and they wanted to show it. And I said, "No, guys, we can't. You can't show me that. We got to run out the door because I got to get you over there because I got to get home and get on a call." And had I just taken 30 seconds, I mean,
Yep.
I would have just, reassured them that what they were doing was really special and it was fun and mom cares. And instead,
Mm.
I gave them this whole idea that they weren't important enough and they realized it was mom's fault. And I will, when they come home, I will say the same thing that I say when we experience that any other time is, girls, I'm so sorry. I didn't pay attention to something that was really important to you because it was my fault. I was so rushed that, next time I'm going to try harder to leave the space so that I can do that for you because
Yeah.
it's just a chain reaction of bad events when
Mm.
when you don't give yourself that. But I want to go back to what you said real quick
Yeah.
about the editing thing because I think it's such a good analogy. If we can
Yeah.
leave that space, then it gives us time to regroup and reassess those little pockets of our day and maybe make them right because I could have made that right with my kids right then if I
Mhm.
started to do that, but I realized, no, you do have a couple of minutes, Jennifer. You can do this right now. And then I pulled back and got back to what we stand for as a family. But I mean, it's normal. That's real life, but you have to self evaluate that quite often, right?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. There's been days where at the end of the day, I can see what I did wrong and what, caused me to not have any margin in my day, where I was so stressed. I had overscheduled myself. And, the ones that pay for that are those closest to us. And, real life, there's just going to be days like that. There's going to be days that are just crazy, and we just do the best we can. But going back to, yeah, thinking about it as margins, like on a spreadsheet or whatever, when we leave ourselves enough room to tweak our days as needed, oh man, it really helps. And I've had some days where I get in the middle of my day and I see what I've done and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go back and tell a couple people, I'm sorry, this doesn't work today. We're going to have to reschedule this. And, though I try not to do things like that last minute, but I've kind of taught myself that sometimes it's okay. And another thing that I've started to practice is the not just saying yes right out of the gate. I'm not good at saying no right out of the gate to certain things. And so I've learned to say, let me get back to you.
That makes you pause then, I suppose, just
Yeah.
by saying that.
Yeah. Just by the let me get back to you. It's so helpful.
And I think we've talked about this on here before. If it's not a heck no or a heck yes, then maybe it's a heck no, because
Mhm.
you're just not 100% sure that it fits into your day, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it because you realize there's some little
Right.
bit of sacrifice there. I think we really made it obvious how short tempers and the stressed outside can be
Yes.
definitely be a consequence of this as the parent. But I also think it leads
Mhm.
to bored kids. I think a lot of kids, the on board thing, or they legit are bored, and they, for different age groups, let's say, like
Right.
that's easy to say for the preschooler or something. Where I'm a big proponent of boredom. I think boredom leads to
Yes.
so much creativity, which I know we've talked about on
Mhm.
here before.
Right.
But I'm talking about the part where they're going to naturally turn to screens, or they're going to turn to a day full of just nothing good or productive because you have crammed things in so much for yourself that it leaves the other people in your family just not reaching for anything that's productive in the sense of building your family or good for them, right? So I think
Mhm.
that's something worth talking about here, is how this can actually fight against those parts in a family too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. There's so many aspects to it, and I think a word that just really goes well with what we're talking about is intentional. Where we create those margins, where we're being intentional, we're making sure that, our kids aren't just on their screens all day, and because mom and dad are so busy the whole day, and, that we just come up with a plan. And there's also another aspect of this that just kind of popped in my head. I was giving a presentation a few nights ago and talking about how our kids have become overscheduled, how we have a tendency as a society, not necessarily right now during COVID, but in our normal everyday lives, we have a tendency to overschedule our kids. And I think it's important that we ask ourselves, are we leaving our kids enough margin in their days? I was talking to these teenagers. They were mainly high school sophomores. And we were talking about life pre COVID and how they felt so overscheduled between school and athletics, and making sure that they volunteer for certain things so that they can get into a certain college. And they talked about how COVID for them has been like this huge deep breath, because they were feeling like they didn't have any margins in their days. So it's not only for us as parents, for our kids as well.
So I'm curious that, yes, I completely agree with that. I did they say anything about that this was a realization that they need to take things out of their daily life, or that they didn't need to be doing all those after school activities or clubs they were in? Did that come up?
It did. I asked them, moving forward, when we get back to normal everyday life, I asked them what they're going to do differently. And we actually talked a lot about screen time, and how if we let it, those screens can suck so many hours out of our day that we don't realize that, you're suddenly on, your 10th funny YouTube video, and 2 hours have passed. And now they say, now we're up till 2 a.m. doing homework. And so we definitely talked about that. And just them getting their priorities, what's most important here. And our kids are just, they get to the age, I'm not quite there yet. And I know you're not quite there yet. We don't have high schoolers yet. But I think once kids hit high school, there's so much pressure on them academically. And then if they're in clubs and groups, and all these things are great, but they need margins as well in their lives for sure.
What an opportunity for us as parents to make this a point to be intentional and sit down with our kids right now before the crazy comes back, right? And
Yeah.
just maybe have a meeting with each child individually or both parents with one child and just talk about what their goals would be for the next year. And is this
Yeah.
activity that I do or this thing I'm spending my time on actually pushing me towards what my end goal is? Because I think we owe that right now to not, I don't know how to say this, like cancel out these gifts we've been given. Because if these kids are smart, and I don't think it's just isolated to the high school age, the younger ones
Right.
have certainly, right, gained a perspective on how busy their families' lives probably were, and to
Mhm.
not make it for naught, right? Like make sure that we
Yeah.
really have these conversations at home. And I think even a good prompt, like a together prompt,
Right.
would be to just say, tell me what it has felt like for you to have XYZ canceled and to have more free time. And just leave it an open ended question and let them talk. Because they might say, well, I liked it at first. Now I'm getting so bored because I don't know how to use my time. And then in that case, you find out, okay, this activity is so good for you for this reason, or,
Mm.
this is actually leading you down the path to this goal or whatever it might be. And then you can see, oh, it's going to start filtering some things out, I think, that maybe you didn't really care to be spending your time on to begin with.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I have heard this time that we're in this whole global pandemic, I've heard it called the Great Reset. And I love that because I think, of course, it's been really hard. There's been a lot of sorrow. People have lost loved ones and jobs and everything in between. But have we been able to take a step back and see what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what needs a little bit more margin in it, what needs room to be tweaked a little bit? Um, I think our lives as parents is ever evolving. Something that worked 6 months ago, you might have thrown out the window and it just doesn't work anymore. And that's okay. It's not black and white. You don't set rules on day one and those rules stick for the next 20 years. It just doesn't work that way. And that is the beauty, I think, of margins, is it gives us room to recalculate and to switch things up a little bit.
What a great word, reset. So I think let's leave everybody with some ideas because,
Okay.
yeah, maybe we all agree this is a problem. We all agree overscheduling might be the obvious thing or cramming things too tight. But let's
Mhm.
talk about some other practical things real quick
Yeah.
that we could do in our home, like in a creative way that already exists, where that's naturally going to put this extra time in our day. And I'll give an example. When we clean for one of our kids' birthday parties, so I have four children, and we will have grandparents over and aunts and uncles over
Mhm.
for the birthday party to
Yeah.
celebrate one of our children. And we'll spend the day before cleaning the house and shoving things in laundry baskets,
All day,
scraping
every day.
counters off and putting them in the laundry baskets. But really, when I
Mhm.
walk down the steps that next morning and the house is perfectly clean, one of the most common phrases that comes out of my mouth is, yay, the house is so clean. What do you guys want to do? I don't have anything I have to do. What do you like?
Yeah.
Let's sit on the floor and play. Let's go out for a bike ride. Let's do this. Let's do that, because it automatically changes your mindset where there's no to-do list in your head with anything in your house. So it changes your perspective where it naturally opens up all those other good things, because if there was a pile in the laundry room, whether I was going to do it right then or not, it feels like this nagging thing of, ugh, it's
Yeah.
hanging over, but I want to go out and play with you, but I know I got to
Mhm.
do that. And I think just for us, one thing that we've started doing is picking two areas in our home that we keep clean. It's our family room and our kitchen. Doesn't mean our sink is always clean, but we try to keep the counters clean and we try to keep the family room clean. And we have a little area that's more of a playroom, and we'll let the kids um, keep that dirty because they're playing. But just the fact of having those two things done really makes a difference for me. Do you have
Yeah.
anything like that that you could give as an example of where it automatically helps you feel like you have more time?
Yeah. Man, I relate to what you just said so much. If I start my day with a giant to-do list from the moment I wake up, man, that's hard. That is not the greatest way to start your day. I should say, if I start my day with a to-do list of things that maybe I should have gotten done the day before, because of course we all have to-do lists for the day. But like you said, if I wake up to a mountain of laundry on my couch that I should have done the night before, but I just thought, I'm going to wait till tomorrow. It feels so heavy to me. And automatically, I just wake up feeling behind, which is not the greatest feeling. So, yeah, I feel like planning, getting things done accordingly is super helpful for sure.
Do you meal prep? Like plan out your meals or cook them ahead of time?
Okay, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I do not cook.
Oh, yes, I knew this.
I know
Okay, tell us.
my husband is the cook in my house. Um, yeah, I I will most of the time meal prep. Like I'll write down the meals and I'll get the groceries, and then it's just turned over to him. So I'm kind of really lucky that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. But that's automatically
Yeah.
you're outsourcing something
Mhm.
that a lot of moms
Yeah.
probably do a lot of times. And I'm not saying dads
Mhm.
can't, of course, but a
Right.
lot of times it does fall on us. So that's
Mhm.
awesome because that automatically gives you something back for your day.
Yes.
Where I was going to say,
Yeah.
like, the most obvious thing is the crock pot. That gives you back time
Yes.
if you just plan, but it goes back to the whole word intentional. So
Mhm.
is your husband pretty intentional about planning? Do you feel like he does plan ahead for what to have for you guys so it doesn't feel so crazy?
He does. I was just out of town for 4 days on business, and I came home and he had planned out like the next 5 days worth of meals. He had done a grocery order and picked them up. And so that getting home from a big trip left me a lot of margin to focus on other things, getting all the laundry done and, just spending time with my kids because it had been 4 days without them, which is really hard.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so, yeah, that's a way that I get some good margin in my day.
Yeah, I'm going to say one more thing I just thought of. I know our last episode we were joking about the schedule thing, and I was it turned into a funny thing about how I don't give my kids bedtime, which by the way, we have changed that since our talk. So thank you for inspiring me on that.
Ooh, good,
But
good, good.
one thing that I was thinking about was, that has actually being able to be a little flexible on bedtime I think has
Mhm.
been our way of kind of building that into our lives, because then after dinner, if someone says, let's go for a walk, but we had eaten later, then we can go for a walk or we can play the game. And that doesn't have to be that, but I think there's going to be different things for all of us, right? Where it works for our
Right.
family to leave those little pockets to create the really special moments of the connection
Mm.
that you want. I think we just have to figure out, where do we want to be a year from now with our family's time and the way we feel together, and our level of stress or our level of patience or our level of happiness with one another? And what are some things we
Right.
can change and talk about in our family today that doesn't feel like an
Mm.
overhaul, but just feels like, yeah, that's doable. I can do that to give me back a little more time to spend with the ones I want.
Right. Yeah. I think that is such good advice. And I think that's a perfect way to end today, is something intentional that you can do with your family today. You can sit down with your family today and have that discussion and to decide what you want your family to look like, your dynamics in this way to look like, a week from now, a year from now, anything. So hopefully we have at least made you think a little bit today about your margins in your day. Thanks for joining us today on the Smart Social podcast. Click the links below to get your free trial of our VIP Very Informed Parent Membership Program with our 30 plus workshops designed for parents and students. The smartsocial.com VIP membership helps parents be informed so they can keep their kids safe on social media so they can shine online. Click the link below to learn how to bring our message to your community via live remote presentation that helps parents and students shine online. If you found this podcast interesting, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review so we can reach more parents and educators. We will see you next week. Thanks for listening.